Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Alisé, and today's video is going to be about Mercury retrograde because as the sun moves into Virgo, we have Mercury stationing retrograde. So Mercury officially stations retrograde on August 23rd, and then the sun begins to shine the light on our Virgo unconsciousness. So I just want to give you some tips about this particular Mercury retrograde. It goes retrograde at 21 degrees in some minutes, so you can look to see what house is that happening in your chart. So this is 21 degrees and some minutes of Virgo. And whatever house that this is retrograding in, this is the aspect of life where consciousness is starting to turn inward. This is a self-reflective process. This is about tapping into our intuition, the intuitive right brain thinking. And so as Mercury's been going direct, we've been gathering information, we've been communicating, we've been perceiving, we've been receiving communications. And then as it retrogrades, as I said, we go into this right brain thinking where it's really tapping into our Jupiterian, Neptunian part of our consciousness as Virgo opposes Pisces. And if you don't already know, Jupiter and Neptune are both co-rulers, our planetary guides to Piscean consciousness. And so you can see how the left brain and the right brain actually are working together as a unit, right? Mercury rules Virgo, and Jupiter and Neptune rules Pisces. So this is our left brain and right brain. We need both faculties of the brain so that we can actually have a more holistic point of view. And so when Mercury goes retrograde, this is where we are tapping into slowing down, relaxing, releasing, the more meditative state where we slow down the communications and we allow the right brain function to tap into information that we may have not have consciously perceived before. But remembering that the left brain thinking, left brain is always just gathering more and more information. This is Mercury's rulership of Gemini, the yang sign of Mercury, Gemini, where we gather information, we gather connections through our connections, through the information we connect to through people, places, things. We're gathering information, and often we're gathering and consuming so much information we don't really consciously, or we're not consciously paying attention to all of it. But when Mercury goes retrograde, then we can actually allow the brain to kind of sift through the files of information and come up to this knowingness that comes in, where we just suddenly have this knowing of where it is that we desire to move forward as then Mercury when it goes direct. So Mercury's rulership of Virgo is very different than its rulership of Yang sign Gemini. Virgo is a Yen sign, so this is really when Mercury goes retrograde when Mercury goes retrograde in this Yen sign of Virgo, it's like a double signature of this Yen energy. So we want to bring our consciousness inward and really assess the way in which we've been perceiving, communicating, and the information we've been getting, and the ideas that we've been tapping into. Are they really in service to what it is that we desire to embody on the earth plane? Because Virgo is an earth sign, whereas Gemini is an air sign. This is more about connecting to ideas. Virgo is where we go, okay, well, which ideas really serve me in my personal evolutionary purpose, as well as relationship to source and contribution to the collective unconscious. How is it that I'm going to be living my dream? And what ideas, thoughts, perceptions really serve that purpose and really serve my service as a divine being expressing source energy on the earth or in 3D experience of consciousness. So interestingly, when Mercury stations retrograde, Venus retrograde forms an exact square to Jupiter. It already squared Jupiter when Venus was direct, but remember now Venus has gone retrograde, so it squares Jupiter again. So I find this very interesting about in the regards to how the day that Mercury stations retrograde, Venus retrograde squares Jupiter, Jupiter being connected to Mercury through the avenues I was just telling you about, how it connects the right brain and left brain thinking, right? So this is about our what we're believing. Is this really in support of our vibration? What makes us feel good? Are we believing what actually is truly in service to that which we desire to embody, Venus as it rules Taurus, and how we desire to relate to anything and everything in the outside world, Venus as it relates to Libra, and remembering that the south node of the moon is now in Libra? So how are we relating to these beliefs that we have formed? And then also, how are we perceiving things? Not only things from where we are in the moment, but even our memories. How are we perceiving our memories? And then how we're perceiving those memories, what kind of beliefs does our perceptions serve? Because if we're actually perceiving things in a way that is actually serving a belief that is out of alignment with our empowerment, then we're not going to actually, then ultimately those beliefs are not empowering us. And if they're not empowering us, they're not being of service to moving forward, to what we desire to embody, to the empowerment of our, and our self-responsibility to our own lives and our own power. Because at the end of the day, we're not victims. We can actually utilize everything that we've experienced and the information that we've gotten and received to actually, transmute it into something that serves us, even if it's just showing us what we do not prefer in our lives. And so that is of service to moving forward in the ways in which we desire, and to forming ideas and beliefs that serve us rather than debilitate our consciousness. Remember that Pisces and Virgo is the axis of consciousness that is related to victim, being the victim. But also remember, Saturn is retrograde in Pisces also. So this is where we can take responsibility for our lives and our own consciousness, and recognize that all things can be of service to our evolutionary momentum, to our own expression of the divine and embodiment of the divine, how they can actually inform us to be able and have the capacity to discern what serves us and what doesn't, what relationships serve us and what doesn't. Even if we find that relationships don't serve us, they actually served us, to recognize what we do not prefer, right? So we can be looking at our memories and also, finding ways where we maybe have bought into being a victim, but how when we actually latch on to the idea of being a victim, that we immediately unplug from our own empowerment and our own energy source, our personal energy source that's plugged into source consciousness, where we are the ones that get to really pull the weeds from our own consciousness, our own garden of consciousness. I always think of Virgo as our garden of consciousness. So we got to pull the weeds. We all got to do it. We all do this. We all have this capacity to recognize there are things that we don't prefer in our lives. And so we need to actually pull those out. And there's ideas that we don't prefer, that just don't serve and actually give nutrients to that which we do desire to grow in our garden of consciousness. So this is where Mercury retrograde in Virgo, this can be a great service to us, where we get to look at what is it that we'd like to eliminate from our belief systems and our values, as well as our ideas, perceptions, and so that we're really actually growing the things that are gonna be giving nutrients to the reality that we personally desire to embody in 3D consciousness. So there's a brief on Mercury retrograde. Now, it started its pre-shadow on August 4th of 2023. So the pre-shadow is always where Mercury is starting to cover the part of the sky, the part of your natal chart, the part of your own psyche. So what's coming up in your world since August 4th. That's giving you some cues around what this Mercury retrograde is in service to for you in your own life. And then, as I said, Mercury stations retrograde August 23rd. The sun moves into Virgo. And then Mercury stations direct at 8 degrees of Virgo, and it stations direct on September 15th. And then it moves through its post shadow, which means that it's moving through the sky, through the part of the sky, our charts, our own psyche, what we worked with during the Mercury retrograde. So it'll be moving back over those degrees that it retrograded in the post shadow. And then it comes out of post shadow on September 30th. And interestingly, our eclipse season starts with our first eclipse is on October 14th. So a couple weeks before we come out of post shadow of Mercury. So that's really good. That's going to assist us to what we can be working with in the eclipse energies. So we're going to have an eclipse on October 14th. And when is I looked at the eclipses last night, but I don't remember the second eclipse. The second eclipse is a new moon solar eclipse in Scorpio, but I can't remember the date on that. I'll get that to you in another video. So I hope you find this to be helpful, and you can always follow my astrology write-ups on my Facebook page, and I'll put the link in the comments. I've got an astrology Facebook page, and I also have a personal page on Facebook. I usually do a lot more on my personal page just because instinctually I go on there and do lives and all kinds of things if you want more updates. But I do stuff on my astrology page. I also have a group called The Labyrinth, A Journey Through the Eclipses. It's a Facebook group, and this is really in support of eclipse season, so I'll be more active in there. If you'd like to join, you're certainly welcome. I'll put the link in the description box below as well. So happy birthday to all the Virgos. I am personally a Virgo, and actually I have 3 planets in Virgo. I have Mercury, Sun, and Moon in Virgo. So this Mercury retrograde starts right on my moon. So this will be interesting to see how this Mercury retrograde gives me information that can be helpful. So anyways, if you find this helpful, let me know. I'd love to hear in the comments. If you feel inclined to share the video, of course you're welcome. And if you feel inclined to subscribe for more updates, you're certainly welcome. So I'll see you on the next video.